Welcome to Up and Away, the restaurant marketing podcast, saving the world from bad marketing, brought to you by Qubriux, the all-in-one platform for loyalty and customer engagement. I'm Rev Ciencio, hospitality marketing consultant, tech evangelist, content creator, and CMO at Salad House in New Jersey, and co-founder of Handcraft Burgers Brew in New York City. And I'm normally enjoyed by my co-host Arun, who is the founder and CEO of Qubriux. He's a tech veteran with over 2 decades of experience. Before Qubriux, he's the principal data scientist and architect for developing Starbucks' personalized customer engagement platform. He is unable to make it today, but as they say, the show must go on, especially we're going to talk about how to turn your database into Goldmine, unlocking it with CRM mastery. Okay, let's be straight, everybody. If you want to decrease the amount of one-timers and increase the lifetime value of current guests, you need to email them, okay? Email is the preferred mode of communications between consumers and brands. And there's a lot of things you can do if you have a guest email. You can get them to join your rewards program. You can get them to follow you on social media. You can get them to order catering, pay for a gift card, convert them to third party. You get them to order that really cool LTO you're promoting again, but without their email address, you really can't do a whole lot, okay? And yet a lot of brands, they're afraid to email their guests. They're afraid it will just be spam, or worse, you do spam them with that same 20% off coupon every Friday or at the beginning of the month, burning out your audience and training them to literally never pay full price, or worse, not open your emails. It is okay to email your guests, and frequently if your emails are worth opening. When you know what to send them, who to send them to, and when to send it, okay? Now that might sound like a lot of hurdles, but it is easier than you think. So to help us to know how to wrangle the lowest cost retention tool in your toolbox, we have the maestro of customer relationship management with us today, Olivia Ross from El Pollo Loco. She's not just doing CRM, she's building an innovation engine on top of customer data. We're gonna ask her, what are the secrets of database marketing together? Olivia, welcome to Up and Away.
Thank you, Rev. I am so glad to be here.
Awesome. God bless. Listen, let's just kick right into this, okay? If you were sitting down at an email database for the very first time, okay, let's say it's a new job or maybe you're just helping a friend, what would you do, or like what would be the very first thing you would look at?
I would look at what percentage of my guests that are coming into my restaurant are actually within that database, right? So what is my contactable guest size as it is pertinent to my brand? I think that's so important, right? Is to understand size of prize. But then the second metric that I would look at is customer lifetime value. And as long as that's available, right? So if we're not able to get to even that level of granularity, then I would start to look at engagement rates. But assuming that we have a little bit more data, I would go right into the CLTV.
Okay, what would you, those are great points, thank you. What, if you looked at the amount of emailable guests, we'll just use that vernacular, what would make you feel, hey, this is good? Like what percentage would you be like, okay, we're in a good place?
I mean, that's gonna vary, right, by brand. I do think that it has like there's validity to saying, hey, like coffee, I would expect a little bit more than something like burgers, for example. For the industry that we are kind of sitting within in our vertical, I would say somewhere in the realm of like 10 to 20% would be a great start, but even 5 is awesome. There's not too few guests. It's really something that you build over time and nurture. And ideally, that number grows and grows and grows as you kind of add your magic to the brand.
So 99% is not any good?
It's terrible. Yeah.
Okay. That at Handcraft Burgers and Brew, my goal is 99%.
And I think that should be every brand's goal, right? I mean, I think every brand should strive for that, but there isn't a place that you're starting off that's like terrible. It's more a matter of how do you utilize the data you have and maximize whatever you can, both for the business and for the customer.
What are some of your favorite ways to gather guest contact data?
Ooh, acquisition. I mean, the best way is the people that are already visiting your restaurant, which is right at the point of sale, or if you're a full service concept, it might be at the table. But I mean, that's why coffee, I think, does so well with this is there's typically a phone number that you enter as you're in the checkout flow, and it's quick and it's easy. So for me, it's always going to be the people that already like your restaurant, and those are always going to be the best leads. Acquisition is expensive.
It is. Totally agree. So you're saying that capturing guest data at point of purchase is your favorite?
I would say yes.
Okay. For a restaurant that does not have technology, you and I are blessed to work with some brands that have that. For a brand that or a restaurant that doesn't have the ability to capture at point of purchase, anything else in store, or any other ways that you would recommend?
Yeah, so I think QR codes have become super popular thanks to kind of the last 5 years that we've all been through together. So you can do that on table tents, you could do it at a poster that's sitting at your point of sale. You could also look to social media, right? So those are also people that are very familiar and already like your brand. So posting about, hey, join my e-club, or hey, join my loyalty program for XYZ benefit. I think it's important to kind of emphasize benefit, because if I'm a consumer and I'm giving you my data, I should be getting something back out of that equation. Um, so I would say those are kind of the best places. And then from there, I think one that's kind of underutilized can be like partnerships and influencers, right? So like, how are people really spreading the word about your brand? It's one thing if me as the brand says I'm cool. It's another if someone else is kind of doing that lip service for me. And so that also would tie into things like referral programs and kind of those more traditional senses. All kind of one and the same, but word of mouth marketing still matters and it still has a place in this world. So to sum it up, it's going to be print and merchandising, social influencers, and then there's the honorable mention too to media, right? So you can always pay for acquisition, but that can get certainly very costly very quickly. And I would just say it's an important part of your media strategy to make sure you're monitoring and optimizing that spend if you're going to go that route.
Amen. Double click. Can I give you three of my favorite ways to capture guest email?
Yeah, absolutely.
Online orders, reservations, and gated Wi-Fi.
I love those too. Those are great.
You put if you're not by the way, I'm not saying you would do this, but if somebody listening to the show, if you are capturing data through any of those methods or any other methods, and then you're not adding them to your database, it's a whole other issue. So, um, Olivia, what would you say is the frequency you can email a guest?
I also think that can vary by the brand, right? I think your full service dining concept has a lot less leeway than maybe coffee or QSR, but I've gone back and forth about this, right? Because you're gonna always see dollars with emails, and so it becomes super attractive when you continue to do that. But there's also the customer journey piece in mind, right? Like 3 emails a week can feel super cumbersome. I think one, maybe two a week is ideal at max, but you really need to judge. It's gonna matter per your customer base, right? And how people react. And that's something you can experiment with and test into and find the right cadence for.
I get a weekly email from the Capitol Grill. So if the Capitol Grill, which I have not dined at in years, can still email me weekly, I think any full service brand can email weekly if they want to, if your emails are good.
True. Okay, agreed. They need to actually add value and bring something that I wanna read about, and I think that's the tricky part.
How do you judge the quality of content in an email communication?
Oh, boy. I mean, there's always your traditional metric side of things, right? So, are people actually opening the email? Like, first and foremost, if they're not opening the email, it doesn't even matter. From there, you can look at things like click-through rate, right? What are people actually clicking on in the email that might indicate what they're interested in? But it's not one for one, right? Like, nobody's going to see new burger just dropped, order now, and all of them order through digital. It's just not realistic, at least for most brands. So I would say there needs to be a grain of salt and consideration given to the fact of like, at least Olivia as a consumer typically doesn't order digitally. I actually like going in the store. Now I'll order digitally for the sake of understanding the industry, but I actually really like going in the store. And so I think it doesn't dictate 100% of your success with those metrics, but they are directional, right? So you can see how they change over time, assuming that your customers are kind of engaging equally across most products and platforms. Then there's the creative side of things, right? And so you can have emails that don't really look and feel like your brand. I would argue now that email's a really great place to storytell and create kind of an extension of your brand, but it shouldn't come out of left field and feel super disconnected. It should feel something kind of in line with what your brand looks and feels and talks about, and isn't just like totally going rogue, but also have some fun with it. I think email's a really great place to have fun and storytell.
Okay, you can't answer your own brand here. What's a brand that's really good at with their email? Like, what other brand do you enjoy reading their email? It doesn't have to be food. It doesn't have to be restaurants.
Oh, wow, okay. I mean, I'm gonna go with Sweetgreen on this one only because I think they're beautiful emails. We redid our entire CRM, like, database, and when I say that, not database from the data perspective, but our touch points, so our emails, we redid all of them, which was, like, hundreds and hundreds a year or so back. And one of the brands that we kind of looked to as a North Star was Sweetgreen because it didn't feel too overproduced. It felt really organic and lived in. But also brands like Kava have a lot of fun and bring a lot of like joy to your inbox. And so finding kind of that balance between how do you tell a really great brand story? How are you making this enjoyable for the consumer to read? And how are you still actually getting like your message across and prioritizing what you're kind of asking your customer to do?
Amen. Are you familiar with the brand? I was gonna say, are you familiar with a brand called Tito's Burritos and Wings? They're a small multi-unit brand here in North Jersey.
I think I've
On
heard of them, but I'm not familiar.
Okay, every single Monday they send out an email. It's just a dad joke.
That's awesome.
Like
I'm signing up.
there's no calls to action. There's no order catering. There's no here's our LTO. It's just a dad joke every Monday morning. And I'm like, you know what? This is a lot of my inbox.
I love that. I'm gonna go tell my team today that I think that's what we need to do with them, then I'll let you
Dad
know their
jokes.
reaction.
I
There's
love
actually there's a brand called Poshmark. It's a resale app for clothing, and it's been around for a little while, but, like, getting out of email a little bit, which is kind of the sister to email or the complement push notifications. They used to send like motivating push notifications quite often, and it was always like such a little treat. And I still think about that a lot. It's like you don't necessarily, to your point here, you don't need to always be such a marketer and a salesperson about it. You can just look to connect with your customer, and that's super meaningful too.
I love this. We're gonna go. I had not planned to go down this road. We're gonna go down this road. Let's brainstorm 2 or 3 fun communication ideas that a brand could do that aren't a call to action to place an order. I'll go first.
Okay.
Um, what if we emailed our guests a high five?
Okay. Like the
Just
old
hey,
like on Facebook, but a high five?
yeah, like hey, have a great day. High five. No call to action. No CTA. No buttons. Nothing. Just a high five. Hope you have a great high five.
Okay. I love that.
All right, your turn.
Um, ooh, I feel like I would always get a good chuckle out of a good meme, tastefully done meme, so I'm gonna email a meme. I think that would be great. I would like it, so obviously my customers would too. I joke, by the way.
You never know. I mean, who's into memes or not. All right, we're gonna do one more. Let me think. So we're gonna do high fives. We're gonna do memes. Um, what if I emailed a link to our favorite charity,
I
bringing
love it.
awareness to a charity we love? All
I
right, your
love
turn.
it. Giving Tuesday is coming up. Ooh, one more. I mean, I don't wanna steal the Poshmark one, but I kind of do because I do love a little motivational, like, "You got this" kinda moment. It would pair nicely with the high five.
I'm gonna keep an eye on your email comms from the brand.
You know, I will give kudos to the person that does our CRM. She is fantastic, and I would argue a much better copywriter than I.
Are you a fan of surprise and delight communication? Since we're on this topic.
Define surprise and delight.
Um, so sort of in the idea of what we just did. So like most brands are going to email you. It's Whopper Wednesday. It's Taco Tuesday. Here's 10% off this. We have an LTO. Buy a gift card. Dine to donate. Like, are you a fan of what we just talked about? Like something that's totally out of left field that has nothing to do with anything.
I am. I don't think it can be constant. I mean, maybe some brands, like it sounds like the Tito's brand has been able, the Tito's Burritos brand, to clarify, has been able to successfully deploy that. I think that it needs to feel like part of your brand identity to do something like that. I'm not in the camp of never, but I'm in the camp of it depends. And I know it's not a great answer, but I think it's gonna feel a lot different coming from maybe a steakhouse, right? Versus more of a QSR. I think QSRs typically have a little bit more leeway to do those types of things. Not to say they shouldn't, but traditionally that's what we would expect. And so I would just say it does become a part of your brand identity if you create a constant of that. And so there needs to just be an understanding of like that's how you want to show up. But sometimes it works really well for brands. So I think it's great.
Totally agree. It has to be on brand, to your point, right? Like has to
Yes,
fit who you are. Can I give you one of my favorites at Handcraft Burgers and Brew? Of course, I'm gonna
of
like
course.
talk about myself, but so we have a checkout flow that gives your feedback through SMS, right? How was it? If you answer that 24 hours later, we text you. We're like, hey, we want to send you a birthday email address, but we don't have your birthday. Can you give us your birthday? And then they fill out their birthday, and it triggers an email that says, sorry, we don't celebrate birthdays here. And then on their half birthday, we email them half happy birthday and send them off.
Has anybody ever reached back out about that?
Yeah, we once in a while I'll be like, this is hilarious. Like, okay, great. That's what it intended to be. So,
I love that. That's great.
and
But
then,
those are like
you know,
little unexpected moments, you know?
okay, let's get a little more technical here. What's one example of a segment that's worth focusing on that most brands skip? And then what's the action?
Lapsed guests, right?
Tell me
People
about
that you sign with your brand and are not coming in anymore. You can define it however you want, make that makes sense for your brand. We use a year. It's pretty typical across the industry. And I think you need to then implement win back campaigns, right? It's, hey, like first, like try and understand where it went wrong. Marketing is only as great as your brand execution. And so that needs to be the crux of this conversation. It's like also know why they're leaving. But if we're going back into CRM world and just strictly looking at marketing, then I would say, how do you create a win back campaign, right? How are you reaching out to the guests and saying, hey, like, give us your feedback. Did something go wrong? Also, we would love for you to come back in. Can we offer you this in exchange for your visit? And typically, when you implement those things, you see a lot of success, right? In reactivation. And I think there's a ton of opportunity in reactivation versus paying with like media dollars for acquisition, right? And so to me, there's bigger opportunity there. And I don't think enough brands have enough like infrastructure built out around that specific segment.
I love this. Why a year? Like what is the significance of a year? Like why not 3 months? Why not 2 years? Why 365?
Honestly, because that's been how I've done it. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's just like how I've been raised in the industry to look at it. But if you wanted, you could definitely, the way I would love to build it someday, is to take a look at guest frequency, break and have it really trigger when you're falling out of your actual cadence and frequency. So let's say I, as Olivia, visit your brand once a month. And if you notice I haven't come in for 3 months, that should be cause for concern. And that would be the ideal end state, right? Is really customizing that journey per guest and not necessarily making it a static year. But that's easier said than done. In some platforms, it's much easier than others. For us, that's not quite where we're at, but it is something that I think about a lot.
Snaps. I wish I have a tool that does that, but not everybody has a tool that does that. But I totally agree. Not everybody has the same frequency, right? So a drop in frequency. That's I totally 100% love that. I'm so glad you said it. So you have somebody that's lapsed. You're going to send them, an email, push message, text, whatever. After a year, you said that you like to get their feedback. What does that process look like? Are they filling out a form? Are they clicking a link? Are they just writing a text? Like how are you gathering that, or what are you asking?
Yeah, so I would say the way I would love to do it would be simpler the better because I think the more you can reduce clicks for people, the better. So I would never send them a long survey, but um ultimately, I think the way that we would have to deploy that would be an email, right? With just like some level of a survey, but you, depending on your brand, could leverage different comms channels as you see fit. Um, Ideally, it would be in the email itself. I think there are some tools that are available out there that would allow you to do that. I know we have access to that type of stuff, so that would be great. But nonetheless, that all said, I would just say reach back out to them and ask, but also have a journey in place, right? Where you're reaching out at, let's just say we have all the tools we want. When they fall out of the cadence, great. And so when we see Olivia hasn't come in that 3 months, we say, hey, like, notice you haven't been back. Here's an offer for X, Y, or Z thing. Also would love your feedback. And then there's kind of a continuum of what that can look like depending on your brand and your frequency. Um, to be able to continue to kind of talk to that guest until they become maybe like truly lapsed or ultra lapsed or however you want to define it.
In your own brand research, what's the top two answers for why people lapse?
So, I mean, it ultimately comes down to I will say, just looking at all brands across the ecosystem, a lot of it comes down to operations, right? And so I think partnering with your ops team is really crucial, or they maybe just are coming and they're not checking out with loyalty. So I think those are really two to look at, but it's not typically because somebody's like moved away. Just
You
because
know,
we have
the,
footprint, right?
the number one answer is at the burger shop.
Oh boy, what is it?
I live in a foreign country.
Oh, well, that's a great reason. Yeah, that's fair. You're like, yeah, makes sense. See you next time.
67% of our guests are transient, but we also are in a very touristy part of town. So anyway, I joke. Um, what do you think is the single biggest mistake brands make with their customer database?
Treating everybody the same. Not all
Okay.
guests are the same. I think segmentation doesn't need to be this huge exercise of like having all the fanciest tools. There are basic ways to look at things and understand what people like. I think you said this on a past podcast. I am actually with you in the camp of I don't necessarily believe in never like cross marketing products and strictly marketing what they're interested in because I think there's a lot of benefit to not only knowing that you have those things for your friend that maybe you're the vegetarian but your friend likes steak. But see, I got you. But the other part of that too, especially in the case of our brand, is we sell individual meals, we sell family meals, and like who's to say a customer wouldn't want both? And so we don't want to isolate people too much. So I think from the sense of like segmentation, yes, important, and you should definitely have a sense of who your guest is. In an ideal world, you're looking at things like product preference, propensity of visits, and average spend, and trying to kind of flip one of those metrics, right? Like get them into a new category, get them to spend $1 more. When I was at Wendy's, we used to say one more visit, one more dollar. It's a huge initiative. I still think about that a lot. Um, so it's, picking one of those three and trying to go after that. And also making sure that it's, it doesn't all need to be relevant to the guest to a T from the sense of like, they're vegetarian, you should never send them a steak offer, but relevant enough to where you're driving the business. And so that's where the art of it comes in because it is a balance. And I think it can be a tricky tightrope to walk. So
I think Wendy's does a terrible job of marketing their potatoes, their baked potatoes, because they are so good and nobody talks about that. That's not your problem anymore.
not my
Um,
problem.
Amen. And kudos. Like I couldn't agree. It drives me batty when somebody says, "Oh, never send a picture of a steak to a vegetarian." Like I'm totally with you on that one. Like they have other friends who have other interests, so like totally 1000% agree. I wouldn't send them a steak over and over, but we're there. Um, what is your favorite method from getting a guest from 2 to 3 purchases?
I mean, ultimately, it's having a welcome series in place, right? So when you join our program, it's hey, welcome to local rewards. Or depending on if it's e-club or not, but I'll just talk to the reward side because it's a bit more built out. Welcome to rewards. Here's your welcome offer that you signed up for, most likely as a part of the value exchange that we talked about earlier with the guest. Um, and then going from there, nurturing them along the way to that third visit. So we have comms in place. If you come in and you sign up but you don't visit, there's a series of comms that will go off on a certain cadence. And then if you hit your second visit, same thing. And we get you to that third visit, then you fall into what we consider more of like our active programming. But ultimately it's kind of bringing people along. One, it's education of the brand and the program for us. And two, it's kind of enticing you with offers. And what we do along the way, which I love, is yes, we shouldn't put people into buckets, but if they show interest in a certain segment, like family meals or individual meals in those first 2 visits, to get them to that third visit, we do look at relevance and we say, okay, like what is the thing most likely to convert them? And if they've showed interest in family meals, let's just send them a family meal offer because that's clearly how they want to kind of intro themselves with the brand. But if it's more of that individual meal or like entree style, let's go that route. And so from that regard, we do look at that from a personalization angle and try to make sure that we're serving up something that's actually meaningful to that customer.
I love it. Are habit conversions worth it? So let's take that another step. So where I just asked is, how do you get a guess from 2 to 3? Like, is it worth it to get somebody who's only ever ordered lunch to order dinner, or for somebody who's only ever come on a Saturday, come on a Monday night? Like, is that effort worth it?
I think so, yeah. I don't know if that's the place that's like what your welcome journey necessarily needs to achieve. I mean, that would be
Gotcha.
my opinion is I would look for what I would consider kind of the like most likely to convert opportunity. And then when they get into the active programming, that's when I would kind of bring them into more like different day part, different menu, vertical, etc., and trying to kind of expand their horizons. But I would say if we're strictly talking about like getting to the third visit, I wouldn't focus on that, but I would after that try and look at that because that's right how you end up kind of increasing customer lifetime value as you get them into more occasions with your business.
Yes, I've read the data that says that's incredibly powerful and incredibly worth the dollars, but I've also found it to be incredibly difficult. Um, like if I order lunch, I've only ever ordered lunch. It might be because I'm not near the restaurant at dinner. You know what I mean? And so
Exactly.
in those cases, I actually try to focus on check increases, not necessarily conversions. So like if you come every Wednesday and spend $23, how can I get you to 24? I find that to be a little bit easier than big habit switches.
Yeah, and I think that's okay too. It ultimately depends on like what's going to be best for the guest and what you can truly get them to convert on and like maybe it is just another dollar and that's totally fine.
Amen. Although the burger shop is great for dinner. We have a few minutes left here. I'm a massive proponent of a welcome journey or a welcome flow, whatever somebody wants to call it, welcome campaign. How do you think about designing one? Like, what is your sort of top level thinking? Like, is it 5 emails? Is it 1 emails? Does it not matter? Like, how do you think about that?
So we've tested into it, right? And tried to make sure that we're not overdoing it, but also sending enough. I would say every brand should do that exercise is like look at how many people are going into each step, right? So here you are as a person, you enter the brand for the first time, you sign up, you don't make a visit. So now it's my job as a marketer to say, hey, we've seen that you've signed up for this amazing program. Here's all the amazing things that you get. Sprinkling that into our messaging, but also reminding them of their sign up offer. Typically, brands will have a sign up offer. If that doesn't work, then it's how do you get people to actually convert? And so maybe you have other sign up offers that are kind of sitting in the background, or you have some level of like a digital engagement tool. It's just thinking about what's going to convert. And we've tested them extensively, right? Like we've gone through many, many, many iterations. We constantly kind of look at new ways to do it. So it's never going to be done. But what I would do is look at like where are you kind of hitting that point where most people aren't really like getting those comms anymore, right? Because ideally what's happening is you're moving somebody into a second visit. What's really important for brands to look at is the average frequency of a guest in your program. So it's unrealistic to expect somebody to like far supersede that frequency right off the get if that's kind of how consumers are engaging, right? Ideally, what's happening is in your loyalty or your CRM program, you're getting a higher frequency than the people that are not a part of it. So take that number and use that as kind of your barometer of like, if they've already gone past like what would be considered a 1 or 2 visit point and they're still not in, like how are we looking at this guest? And from there, same logic, right? Second to third visit. How are we looking at moving people down the funnel? How are they converting? Ideally, what you do is look for not over discounting. So if you're going to be using offers in those series, don't go out with the most aggressive offer. Have it come in like maybe 1 or 2 comes later so that you're not giving away everything. And so they can get more aggressive to drive conversion, but they don't have to be that aggressive from the start. So it helps balance margins, right? Ultimately,
Appreciate
that's how
that.
I would look at it. I'm sure you have some stuff you want to add to that, though. There's a lot of ways to take this one on.
A whole other show. What is your, as we close out here, what's one of your North Star metrics? Like if you could pick one thing or maybe two things to look at on a daily basis or weekly basis, like what's the North Star metric?
And it's always going to be sales. I know that everyone answers that way, but if we're looking past sales, I think participation is really important. And I know that's a little bit more loyalty than CRM, but if people don't feel there's enough value to use your program in your restaurant, then like that is something you need to take a bigger step back and ask yourself why that is. So I think participation, right, is really important, and you should be growing that metric on a daily basis.
I love that. I love that. And if you're a smaller brand and you don't have all the fancy tools that Olivia and I have access to, I would say database growth. Like just get people's email addresses. Like
Yeah.
that's a good metric to use if you're an independent restaurant. Like how many email addresses back to where we started,
100%. It all comes back around.
There you go. Olivia, this has been fantastic. I knew it would be. Thank you. You over-delivered on the goods. You've basically given us a masterclass on how to turn, data graveyard into a gold mine. So thank you. I want to make a note to our editor. We should create a blog post with Olivia's framework here. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great being on, guys.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and time with us today. So listeners, if you're ready to stop batching and blasting and start building real relationship with your customers, share this episode with your team or another restaurant operator who needs to hear this. Please take a second right now to rate us on your favorite podcast app. It generally helps others find the show. Thank you.